The name. Here we go again, folks. The name. This compassionate and gracious and long-suffering and merciful and forgiving name, definition of God Himself. There are benefits to knowing that name and to benefits to really worshiping Him because of His name, of exalting His name, because, well, for one thing, we know, especially with Jesus' version of the name, His being lifted up, and I'll talk about that a little bit tonight. He says, there is salvation in no other, for there is no other name. Now, how many names would there be? None. There is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. Have you noticed sometimes when a preacher gets interviewed on television by some guy, they want to know, do you really have to be a follower of Jesus to be saved? Because the world wants to say, well, then why should, all you ever talk about is Jesus. Why can't something else save us? Well, tell me who else can. You know? I heard one guy, I believe it was Larry King, who asked, in fact, this was a friend of mine, I know him well. He said, well, isn't Jesus just a crutch? And my friend said, no, He's the whole hospital. And I thought, yeah, I like that, you know. And this is it. Frankly, folks, you don't have to be embarrassed by that. Yeah, there is no other name. And the fact of the matter is, if anybody asked me that, I would say, do you know of another? I mean, what do you put your hope in for salvation? Well, I'm just concerned that, you always talk Jesus. Well, that's it. That we do. Think of it in this way. Suppose I were to say to you, here is the key to a brand new Rolls Royce. It's a gift. Are you going to say, well, why do I have to accept a key from you? Maybe somebody else wants to give me a Rolls Royce. I mean, doesn't this get silly all of a sudden here? You know, no. If salvation is offered, and here's the key, folks, this is the key, and we have to understand that. And don't then think, well, then I don't know. Let me try and see if I can find another way. But there is salvation in no one else but Him. Now, after Jesus had gone through it, you know, and did what He did in His days in the flesh, and you find Paul the apostle talking about Him in a rich, rich passage. And Paul, I think, was the ideal guy. You know, God offered the Gentiles to Peter. Remember? He was the first one to open the door to the Gentiles in that town I think of as a sacred town. They have uncovered a whole lot of it, Caesarea, that incredible, really world-class port that Herod had built. And I think of it as a sacred city because that's where the gospel came to us. And I also think of it as a sacred city because that's where Philip and the evangelist and his daughters lived. And I also think of it as a sacred place because when the persecution came, that port just pumped believers out to the rest of the world. Man, if the persecution hadn't come, what would we do? What would the kingdom do? But by having a port like that, it became, as far as I'm concerned, a sacred city. Well, some of the benefits of being, and I don't know why I got off on that, but you can just think about it. One of the real benefits to all of this that Jesus did was when Paul had studied the law, and he knew it probably better than anyone else. And he probably lived it better than anyone else. He said, as a Pharisee, I'm blameless, you know. Now, that's a tough thing to do because that meant that he really kept the law. But he discovered, I think, that all the law did for him was make him kill people. it was kind of hopeless because the law doesn't save. There's no mercy in the law. There's no grace in the law. That all comes from God himself and through Jesus. Interesting thing. And so finally, when God did a real number on Paul, boy did he ever. Paul writes, "Let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus." In other words, it's something you can permit to be in you. That's great. Do you realize that? See, God doesn't say, you better have the mind of Christ and you better get it now. No, permit it. Let his mind be in you, which used no force on us and was not driven by blind ambition. It made himself of no reputation, not bad reputation, but no reputation, so anyone would be comfortable with him, who took upon himself the very nature of a servant, which was the most loving thing that could happen, and was found in human likeness, just like us. Jesus was completely human, folks. He was made like his brothers in every way, Hebrews tells us. Sometimes people say, do you believe Jesus had a sin nature? All I know is that for him to be tempted in every way, he had to be a person with desires for everything. See, you can't tempt me with something I don't have a desire for. You can put a peanut butter sandwich by my bed at night, it'll be there in the morning. But you put chocolate-covered raisins there, I'm tempted. You see, you got to have the desire to be tempted, which meant he was so complete as a human being that everything he had a desire for and was tempted in all points like we are. That I know, but I also know, yet without sin. That is so incredible to me, yet without sin. And he humbled himself. That meant he was totally honest about his humanity. He says, I'm meek and lowly in heart. Wow. And was obedient. Obedient. What did he need to be obedient to? Well, he puts it this way. I only do what I see the Father do. I only say what I hear the Father say. Wow. He wasn't doing his own thing. He wasn't saying, I know the Father's up there, but wait till I show you what I can do. No. He's just listening. He's just watching. Whatever you do, I want to do. Whatever you say, I want to say it. Even unto death. Oh. Never was so innocent a man given such an illegal and unjust judgment and killed. But he did that for us. He did that for us. You ever wonder, why would he do it for me? Because that's how much he loves you. I've heard statements, and I like the thought, and if you were the only person in the world, he would have still died for you. That's how important you are to him. So what's the result there? Well, here's the result. Therefore, God has raised him up, and listen closely, given him the name that is above every name, at whose name every knee shall bow. That's the future, folks. In heaven and earth and even under the earth. And every tongue confess. Won't that be exciting? That Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory, and we still have to talk about glory, of God the Father. I get goosebumps when I think about this. And this is all around the name. The name.